what we are going to look at now, after we have considered the background concepts to this like needs and wants piece, like I talked a little bit about, objective and subjective perspectives, and then we get back to the question of like, what if I don't know what my wants are? So there are a few ways for us to get to understand the person's needs and wants by doing a few things. One is by looking at what the person does or does not do. Two is to look at how this person makes sense of what he or she is doing or not doing. Three is to look at how this person is feeling about what he is doing or he or she is not doing or doing. So those are the like three major approaches, and very often we can also supplement our understanding or complement our understanding by looking at the person's complaints, what this person is not happy about. So that is actually a derivative of three. That is like when we're talking about like how is this person feeling about what he or she is doing or not doing. So I'm not sure it's clear. I hope it is. Okay, so let us start with like what a person is doing and not doing. So when people complaining or reporting that, oh, I do not know what I want, very often the people saying this are doing something, right? It can range from actually living a very busy life. You have people who have a very busy life, schedules, social contacts and, meetings and whatever. And then by the end of the day, when this person retires to his or her own home, is saying, I have wasted another life. I feel like I'm just like a living corpse. I do not know what I'm doing. So that kind of person can say that I do not know what I want. I do not know what I need. And to the other extreme, you can have people who are basically staying at home or lying in bed most of the time, not doing anything, saying the same thing, right? I do not know what I want. But these are two obviously different types of situations, right? So let me start with the first, and then I will go all the way like down to the other extreme. So for people who do not know what they want and what they need, but they're nonetheless doing a lot of things, right? How do we get to know what they really need, right? One of the things is to look at what they do. Say, for example, this person is like constantly whining and dining clients. This person spends a lot of time talking to people at work. Imagine if this person is the boss, like this person enjoys like having meetings with his employees. But this person may or may not be interested in, say, for example, looking at the numbers or looking at statistical reports or like market trend analysis. And then we can infer from this person's behavior that he or she actually has a stronger need for affiliation, for company, for interpersonal contact than, say, for achieving better results for his or her company, right? That is reflected in his or her preference for different types of activities. If this person's assistant comes in and say, well, boss, you have this like 4 activities for tomorrow morning, and how do I fit it in? And if the person looks at the 4 activities and say, okay, right, skip this like summary writing session, give this like a statistical update to people in the marketing department. I'm going to meet Mr. A and attend this social event at our construction plant. Then it shows you a preference, right? So this is like by looking at a person does what a person does or does not do, right? So even if we move the other extreme and you have someone who, say, for example, is like struggling with mental illness, maybe like a long-term case of depression, and this person is like spending most of his or her time at home, not going out in bed, right? Do we still know this person's needs? Well, actually, yes, because this person inevitably is still doing something. So I'm using this example because I've actually come across these cases of a fair bit in my own practice in psychotherapy. There are people who have like long-term history of schizophrenic disorder, who have not been working, who are socially isolated, not doing a lot. And then I also work with people with like major affective disorder or depression, and they seem to be manifesting a similar pattern. But when you talk to them, they're still doing something, right? If you find someone in that kind of situation is keeping a pet, that tells you something, right? So why does he or she keep a pet, right? The pet, what does the pet deliver, right? The pet may provide sensory stimulation, tactile, visual, auditory, right? The pet may actually, in some cases, right, be able to address certain affiliation needs. Some people feel like more comfortable with animals than with human beings because they may be longing for affiliation and attachment, but they're very afraid of negative emotional experience like personal attack, insult, humiliation, or outright abuse and violence. So if you look at this situation, then you can infer that this person actually needs affiliation, but also needs safety and security, which that particular person may or may not have experienced adequately in his or her earlier life. So that is like one way of getting at like what the person needs. Right? So we're looking at what this person does or does not do and try to infer. And obviously when we're inferring, we have to be fully aware of the fact that we're inferring, meaning that our inference has to be treated as a hypothesis to be tested. So if we speculate that this person actually longs affiliation but is afraid of like negative experience like criticism or attack, then we can introduce this person, actually do it in like my group treatment program for people with long-term schizophrenic disorder, is to invite them to a social situation which I will see to it that like all the members participating understand that no one is going to get a negative experience out of it. We're not going to be like criticizing each other, judging each other, or say things that are humiliating or threatening. And then if you find out that these people actually enjoy being there, right, then you know that your hypothesis about their affiliation need is correct, right? So that has to be tested, right? And obviously, going back to my earlier idea about need profile, you may have like 200 people having the same diagnosis, and then they all come to a safe environment. But you will find that some people are enjoying it more than others. So it comes back to the need profile idea that right, some people has a stronger need for affiliation than others, right? So some people are pretty much like okay doing things on their own, but they do not realize that there are many other pleasurable ways, right, to engage in, right, when they're on their own. Like one of the things that we are now experimenting with more recently is the use of like virtual reality games. And for some people, it would be better than like passively watching television, right? So, and it also delivers a different set of sensory stimulation, and it also enhances activity, which we believe will, in a positive feedback loop, right, get the brain to a higher level of like dopamine maybe, and then these people will be experiencing pleasurable activity, right, that will generally improve their physical and mental health. Right? So we're trying to do different things, right, by inferring, what needs pressing within an individual. So that this is like first by looking at what they do or what they don't. The second thing that I talked about is like how do they make sense of what they do, right? So if someone has like been doing a lot of things, and then the person says that, well, it's all futile, it's like all meaningless. It's stupid. It's a waste of my time. But the person keeps doing it, right? We usually believe that the actions literally speaks louder than words, right? So if someone is constantly complaining, but like this person is like always going there, right? Especially when it is realistic to say that this person actually does have a choice, and this person still chooses to do something, then it will reinforce our hypothesis that this person actually needs something, or some needs are actually being met. And sometimes when people constantly does something and they're denying that certain needs are being met, there are two possibilities. One is that they're right. They actually do not need those. There is something else that they need, right? And we have to figure out what it is. Right? Say, for example, someone is constantly going through this like whining and dining situation, and then every time this person complains, I really do not want to go there. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my life. And, but what can I do? I'm the CEO, or I'm the marketing manager, or I'm the PR or the fundraiser for this organization or this company. So if that is the story that they're telling, what it actually articulates is that, well, like although this person says that he or she doesn't enjoy this, but this person is constantly going there, well, there must be a reason, right? One of that can be, for example, the person is escaping from something that is less pleasant. Say, for example, if the person has like a high tension marriage, right? And this person actually dreads coming home to his or her partner. So these like socializing and like, business obligations becomes more preferable than, facing intense familial conflict, right? Or this person has like caregiving duties that he or she is trying to escape from. So that explains, right, why this person is constantly doing that. But still, right, as I said earlier, well, there are multiple alternatives. This person still chooses to go to those locations because probably socially acceptable excuse can be, like I have to finish like all this like monthly statistics, or like go through this like books of my company, or I have to study these proposals and like write responses or whatever. But if this person still chooses to be in the company of others, then I would argue there must be something out there that this person is enjoying. Right? So that is like by listening to the story, looking at what kind of sense making is generated. So sometimes people are telling you things because the activity is reinforcing a particular sense of self, right? This person can tell you that, like I work overtime all the time, and then like, this is actually not what I wanted to do, but I have no choice, I'm in this position anyways. The reason why this person is telling us this story actually is connected to how this person wants to be perceived by others. So all these can be something that this person does, right, to reinforce a particular sense of self. One of the things that I have more experience with, like especially in recent years, is working with people who are providing care to older family members who have dementia. So some of the people actually enjoy doing this. They derive a sense of satisfaction. They see change that they help to bring about. So those are good. And these are unlikely people who tell you, I don't know what I want, right? These people can be saying things like, I want my father to be happy. I want my mother to have a high quality life. I want to learn things, right, so that I can become a better caregiver. So these are people who do know. who are the people who be doing this like repeatedly, and then say, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know. I don't even know what I want. I want to have my own life. Like I can't afford to have that. So when people say that, right, you can actually analyze it more carefully. If someone is saying that, okay, I'm providing care, that is not what I want to do, I would rather prefer having my own life. And then you find out, right, by talking to this person, taking a careful look at his or her history, that he or she is constantly the family caregiver, starting from a younger age. And this person has never actually taken the opportunity to start his or her own life. And we find people like that in a lot of families, right? And it's very interesting. Sometimes like you have like maybe I don't know 6 siblings, and somehow there's always this one sibling who's taking up all of these like caregiving duties. Very often, the conventional story is that there were like maybe like pathological or morbid family dynamics, or you have people saying that there is like a family pattern that contributes to this. But ultimately, we still have to ask the question: why is this person taking this up, right? So when this person is taking this up, certain needs are being fulfilled, right? What some people can use, like sort of like a more objective, or what I call it, like a more emotionally distanced uh, analysis, and saying that usually it's the person with like so say lower income or lower socioeconomic status to take this on, which is generally true, but we also see exceptions of like people who are financially or socially successful still trying to become the primary caregiver. Right? We have seen cases like that. So in each case, we will say that like maybe a different set of needs are being met. Well, we can easily imagine someone who is like in a position where he or she feels that like I'm inferior, my siblings are all more successful, financially or otherwise, but I'm the better daughter or I'm the better son, right? So when I does that and say that this consuming all my time and energy and everything, and like look at my brothers and sisters, they're not even contributing. When I'm saying this, when I'm complaining, I'm actually telling you that I'm a better person than they are. So the need that is being met by my life design is actually self-esteem, right? So I derive like I get a better self-assessment, self-image. Uh, in the other example, when you have someone who's like very successful and can easily afford to get people to or pay for services, and you still find this person doing a lot of caregiving, so it can be motivated by like a strong intimacy need, right? Like, this person might actually have had a very high quality relationship with this person that he or she is giving care to, and derives a lot of satisfaction because it enhances a sense of intimacy. Uh, this person may also have like most of his or her other needs like pretty satisfactorily met, and is looking for purpose and meaning, which is sort of like more in the transcendental existential realm. So then we are looking at other set of needs, right, that are being met. So you can have people doing the same thing, coming from different circumstances, trying to achieve that. But I just want to really emphasize this, right? I do not want to give people the wrong impression that if someone is coming from a lower socioeconomic status, providing care, then this person would have like less laudable needs. No, it is totally possible that someone who is struggling with like financial hardship and has not accomplished much according to socially defined criteria of success we also doing something that is profoundly existential, that has like tremendous personal meaning, and that person may also be a person who is like seeking the same kind of like intimacy, satisfaction, or self-actualization. You know, the, the sense of satisfaction coming from compassion and empathic engagement with someone that you really love. Right. So like I was using the earlier example as illustrations. Right? I really want to make it very clear that we do not want to overgeneralize. Right? Those are just like examples. And this is why in the SSLD system we emphasize individual difference more than like standardized categories or stereotypic understanding. So that is like what I refer to by like how people are making sense and what stories are they telling. Right, this is really important. So we sometimes will be able to understand what needs to be met by listening to the narrative. So the third piece, right, is actually closely related to the second piece, is how people feel. So but then when we're looking at like how people feel, we do not always only count on people's verbal report, right? We more often we're looking at their overall emotional expression. I have learned it like through my extensive contact with caregivers over the last while, working with people and families, with people struggling with dementia. So you can have someone sitting in your office, or when you're visiting them in the home, or when you see them in the long-term care facility or an adult day program, you can see a family member talking to you about, this is what my mom did, after coming to your program for 3 months now, she's talking to people and she's more engaged. And you can see this person when he or she is talking to you about this beaming with joy. Then you understand there is like a lot of positive emotions experienced, even though it is tough, challenging, and difficult. On the other hand, you can also have like members coming from the same program, the same group, talking about the same thing, but like not showing much signs of positive emotion, but there is a lot of negativity. I think, okay, yes, professor I know, she has like she's doing better, but like she's still like swearing us like at times, and then like she still like have difficulty finding her way to her closet or whatever, right? So you can have people who are dealing with the same reality but showing very different emotions. So when we take this into account, then we understand better what this person's needs are. And one of the things, so this is why we're paying attention to emotion, because emotional needs very often the kind of needs that is sort of like difficult for people to articulate. So say, for example, we assume that most people have the need to experience positive emotion. And when people are not experiencing that, right, we will try to see if we can explore that by asking people simple questions like, what would make you feel better? Right? Is there something that you want, right? Or something that you want to change, or there's things that you want to add to this experience, or what do you want to see happening in your life, or what do you want to see happening to people that you care about? So by doing that, right, we're sort of focusing on the emotional needs of people, right? And very often you find that when people are having a very negative experience or attitude towards life, they have a tendency to be oppositional. And then if you ask them, they will say, I don't know, or I don't care, or whatever, right? Those are the answers that you sometimes get. our general principle is not to fight with the person, not to argue, right? We'll try to open it up for the person, right? If we ask, okay, like, what do you prefer, like coffee or tea, or red wine or white wine, like fruits or cake, or dessert or snacks. Some people say I don't care, or whatever, right? Uh, we sometimes would just like present those to them physically, and as you can easily tell, they would still choose, right? And the choice still tells us something, right? So this is the general principle. Like, so I'm summarizing, right, this few things that I'm talking about. Like, one, I started off by saying that like we should be paying attention to what people actually do or what they do not do. Two, we pay attention to how they talk about what they do or do not do, and the kind of meaning they ascribe to it. Three, we look at their emotional experience. And I also mentioned earlier that like under three, like there is a spin-off that you can call it the fourth point, or a subsidiary point to the third. Is like what they're complaining about. Actually, when people are complaining, it tells you something that they want. Right? So if someone says that I feel bored, then I would say this person maybe wants variety, novelty, stimulation, something different, right? Surprises, right? If someone tells you that I'm tired, right? Maybe this person needs to do something else, right? Some change in arrangement, right? Or this person maybe needs to be pampered a little bit, right? Maybe he or she can benefit from a couple of spa sessions. I don't know, right? So whatever person is complaining, we ask, like what is the logical extension of that, right? What can we do to make this person feel better? And once you get to that point, you will have some sense of what this person may prefer, may want, and from that, right, it is easier for us to infer what this person's needs might be. So then I would like come back to this like sort of more generic question that very often we find people asking. I do not know what to do with my life. I feel stuck. I don't know what I want. I do not know what to do. Very often, some of these people will need what we call like high order restructuring. We'll be talking about things like meaning, purpose, core values. But very often we can actually start with something that is like more tangible, less abstract. So what will make this person feel better? Right? Some of these can be very simple, rearranging the physical environment, some little pleasurable experience in life. And very often, right, we have a lot of literature on this, right? About people who are complaining about, not being happy, or not being satisfied in life. I remember that was what I read as a high school student when I read The Merchant of Venice, and then we have this character complaining that like, well, the opening line in Merchant of Venice is like, in sooth, I do not know why I'm so sad. So this person is saying, I don't know why I'm so sad. In the story, right, the person later found love, right? And then also found a purpose, a sense of value, right? So those are some of the things that people may need. But in a lot of cases, it can be just like a change in like work environment, a change in living arrangement, and it can be like a change to a new job, or finding social support, or developing something that is pleasurable and meaningful. Like it can come in the form of a hobby, it can come in the form of like becoming a member of a voluntary organization, or getting involved in some game or sports that this person enjoy. So it can work at multiple levels, and we do not automatically assume, right, that the answer is like either here or there. And very often, by listening carefully to the person's story, we'll have like better cues with regard to what might be the things that should be put together to help this person reorganize his or her life. And this is actually an SSLD program that we've mentioned before that we call life world design. So we're helping people to redesign their life world, pretty much like an architect working with like an interior decorator and like maybe some like landscaping specialists, right? All working together to create a life world that is pleasant, delightful, and gratifying. So we actually have like specific programs for that, but very often the starting point is answering the question of like, how do we get to know what we need, right? So I hope this is a helpful start.